Here to talk about this weekend's competition. For the second straight year, the World Cup has returned to Los Angeles. It will be held at the Forum on Saturday and Sunday. We have the top 8 teams in the world. The winner is the International Dual Meet Championship in the Olympic style of freestyle. This is a major event on the United World Wrestling schedule each year. And this year we have 8 teams. We have some new teams we didn't have last year. Belarus, Cuba, and Azerbaijan qualified. So anyone who was here last year, you'll see some new teams and have an opportunity to check out some great new athletes that did not compete last year. To get things started, I'd like to introduce Andy Barth. He's our freestyle team leader for the United States and founder of the Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, which is a wonderful international club that's located in this region, and also our host here in Los Angeles. And I'd like to have Andy just welcome everyone, talk a little bit about this year's World Cup. Andy?
Thank you very much, Gary. It's a thrill to have all of you here. We want to get to your questions just as soon as we can. But I just want to say this is a fantastic event. It is a fan-friendly wrestling event. It's a great way to watch wrestling. You can concentrate. You can watch your country. You're going to see the best wrestlers in the world. After the Olympics and the World Championships, this is probably the highest level of wrestling competition a fan can watch at any time of year or at any time in the Olympic cycle. We're thrilled to have it in Los Angeles again. I think we've been building a fan base, and we've been building a connection with the California wrestling community. We are just so excited to have everyone here, to have our friends from different countries back again, to have friends from new countries, and I think we're going to put on a tremendous show. It's just going to be one of the best wrestling events of the year.
Does anyone have any questions for Andy? We're going to allow you questions for each speaker, and at the end we'll do it one more time and then have time for one-on-ones. If you have any questions for Andy, raise your hand. I'll hand you the microphone. 1 second, please. Tell us who you are.
Good morning, Andy. My name is John Giggles. I'm a documentary filmmaker. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for putting this event, remarkable event together. And besides obviously the match, I'm really concerned. Hopefully, if you could elaborate a little bit about the tension between Iran and the United States, and what does it mean to you folks as a professional wrestling team?
Yeah, well, this is how much tension we have here. Except I know if I squeeze him too hard, he'd throw me down. This is all about sport, and the fact is that even at the most tense times between Russia or Iran, Cuba, or any of the countries here, the connection within the wrestling community, the connection between federations has always been extremely friendly, extremely cooperative. To digress a second, our Titan Mercury team went to Iran for the Clubs Cup Championship in November of last year. And I think every one of those wrestlers who went would proclaim the hospitality, the friendliness, just what a wonderful event it was, and it was probably the best wrestling event of their careers, of their lives. And so I think the only tension you're going to feel is that we do want to beat Russia and we do want to beat Iran. We want to be number one. Otherwise, and whatever happens though, we're gonna walk off the end of the mat at the end of the day, and we're gonna hug and we're gonna shake hands, and we're gonna be friends.
That's so beautiful. Could you just lastly tell me, what do you think an average American could learn from this match? Because unfortunately, the media have manipulated the Iranian people in general for the last 30 years. So what do you think you have a message for the rest of your brothers and sisters who live in this country?
I think it's always a message that, on a person-to-person basis, we can all get along. We can all appreciate each other's differences and our similarities. We can compete, and that sport is a wonderful way to promote diplomacy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else for a question for Andy? If you do have a question, Bob Condren from United World Wrestling will have a microphone for us. Okay, at this point, I'd like to let you know that we've got some guests from other countries that have agreed to come to our press conference. We have two of the top coaches in the world that are working with very talented teams here. And we're here to discuss sports, and we ask that your questions pertain to that topic, please. We do have interpreters, and for each of the guests we have, we'll have an interpreter sitting there to help out if they need some help with understanding your question or giving an answer. So I would like to start at this time with the coach from Iran, and his interpreter, please. Our first coach guest is Ali Reza Rezaie. As an athlete, he was an Olympic star for Iran, and he now helps lead the country's program as one of its top coaches. I will ask a question for each person on the dais, and then from there, we'll open it up for questions. So, my question for Coach Rezaie, how did your training go with this team, and what kind of performance do you expect from Iran at this World Cup?
ما تیم به لحاظ آمادگی در شرایط محدودی دو تیم در این مسابقات شرکت دادیم که یک تیمش تیم با تجربه، تیم دیگرمون تمام از جوانان شایسته‌ای هستن که در این یک سال گذشته اومدن خودشون نزدیک کردن به اون افراد با تجربه. تمام سعیمون این هست که به جوانانمون هم بهای لازم رو بدیم تا در کنار شیر با تجربه‌مون بتونن رشد و پیشرفت خوبی داشته باشن و به زودی زود جای اونا رو زود ترتیب
Our participation for this cup has been really top level. We are bringing two teams in our delegation. One is a very experienced team that has participated in many international events, and a young team that has the ambition and the strength to be as level of the experience as the first one. We are hoping by kind of this mixture, we are keeping the level of our participation high in the international cups, as well as providing an important experience for our young wrestlers, who later on will be taking the place of the experienced one. So this way we have continuity in future World Cup participation.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about just how special and how unique is this competition as opposed to some of the other events that you compete in?
مسابقات جام جهانی یا ورلد کاپ جزو مسابقات مهمه که ما میتونیم تست کنیم کشتیگیران رو در مقابل کشتیگیرهای مختلف از کشورهای دنیا، کشتیگیرهای خوب از کشورهای مثل امریکا، روسیه، بلاروس، ترکیه و تمام تیم‌های شرکت کننده یه فرصت در اختیار ما میذاره که تمام کسانی که میتونیم روشون حساب کنیم بریم آزمایششون میکنیم از مسابقات قبل مثل مسابقات قهرمانی جهان تا الان و از الان تا مسابقات قهرمانی جهان بعد. این مسابقه آزمایش خوبی برای بچه‌های ماست و خاطر همین با جدیت همیشه این مسابقات نگاه می‌کنیم و به نظر من جزو مسابقاتیه که برای کشتی هم مهم هست. یعنی اهمیت دادن مسابقات جام جهانی یا ورلد کاپ باعث تقویت بیشتر کشتی در سطح جهان.
World Cup is a very important participation for our team. We believe that in this level of competition, our wrestlers get an opportunity to go against top wrestlers from other countries. This contact allows our wrestlers to learn and get adjusted for future participation in other competitions. So coming to the World Cup is very important in terms of giving experience to our wrestlers. We also believe that wrestlers Our wrestlers going from World to World Cup go through a transition that allows them to become more competitive. And so by participating in such a competition, they become more competitive. And overall, we believe World Cup is good for the sport of wrestling as a whole. It brings a lot of attention to the cause of wrestling, and we believe wrestling benefits from participating in World Cup.
Thank you. Any other questions for Coach Rezaie?
Coach, your team received a very warm welcome from the Persian population here in Los Angeles, which is very large. How does that impact your team, and what are you expecting this time?
طبیعی است که ما خوشحالیم از استقلالی که هموطنانمون از مسابقات و از تیم ایران انجام میدن. تشکیلات خیلی خوبی که در سال گذشته داشتن باعث تشکر و احترام ما هست. امیدوارم امسال هم به همین شکل باشه و اون در واقع حمایت‌هایی که از تیم رو میکنن، امیدوارم تیم ما بتونه بهترین نتایج رو برای کسب بکنه که باعث افتخار همه ایرانی‌ها در همه جای دنیا بشه. ورزش کشتیگری ایرانی بسیار ورزش حائز اهمیتی هست و به عنوان ورزش تاریخی ورزشکار و ورزش ملی مورد بحث برای تمام ایران.
They're very, very pleased with the level of support and hospitality they receive from Iranians outside of Iran when they visit. It is very important for them to see such a support, and for the wrestlers who see the Iranian community supporting them. This will encourage them to win, to compete more positively. He's also reminding everyone that the sport of wrestling is an important sport in Iran, as a culturally speaking is the national sport of Iran. It enjoys the sport, it enjoys the reputation of having a historical sport, and that Iranians are all related to. So he's always very pleased to see the level of hospitality Iranians outside Iran bring to the Iranian team when they visit.
Any other questions? One last question.
Coach, you have a bunch of youngsters on your team. As a world-class coach, who do you see in the future being the world champions? Couple of names.
حتما ما جوانه بسیار خوبی داریم. یه تعدادشون رو آوردیم اینجا که البته یک تیم کامل هستن. یه تعدادشون هم دارن تمرین میکنن در ایران و احتمالا سالهای آینده، یعنی سال آینده جام جهانی نوبت اوناست تا به عنوان یک تیم در کنار با تجربه ها قرار بگیرن. قطعا اگر مشکلاتی بر سر راه این جوانان مثل آسیب دیدگی‌هایی که تو ورزش هست انشاءالله که امیدوارم نباشه، هیچ وقت نباشه، قطعا از این جوانان در آینده در جهان کشتی بیشتر خواهیم شد و سکوهای مختلف مسابقات آینده رو این جوانان تواناییش دارن که فتح کنن.
We have brought a very strong competitive young team for this participation in this cup. We also have a very strong team inside Iran right now, training, going through the preparation to get ready for other participation. We believe that unless this young team is injured or suffers from some kind of a physical handicap, I believe that they have a strong potential to win titles in future cups. So we are investing in our Iran team, both inside Iran and outside Iran.
Thank you very much, Baman, for helping, and thank you, Ali Reza, once again for being our guest. We will now switch our gears to the Russian team and bring up Valentin Koliko, who's one of the top coaches here in the United States, speaks some pretty good Russian. He's here to help our other coach. So, Christakis Alexandridis has been our coach for Russia here at many tournaments here in the United States. He's the team leader of this group and one of the coaches for the Russian team. And as you may know, last year Russia was the world champion again at the World Championships and was second in the World Cup. So I have one question for Christakis. Christakis, could you tell us about this Russian team at the World Cup and what you think its chances are to win this year's tournament?
В первую очередь хотелось бы поприветствовать организаторов этих соревнований. Как всегда, они прекрасно все организовали, начиная с встречи в аэропорту и заканчивая здесь размещением гостиницы. Второе, то, что мы привезли не самый сильный состав. Основная цель нашей поездки — это еще раз убедиться в самочувствии наших ребят. Это мы чемпионат мира в Лас-Вегасе. Ну и понимая, что Россия одна из сильнейших стран в мире, мы готовы бороться за первое место. Я надеюсь на это.
So, Christakis, first of all, thank you for organization, for the warm welcome, picking up from airport, from a nice hotel, for organization of this tournament. Now, he's saying that they brought not the best team to this tournament, but they want to see how their team gonna adjust for this tournament, time difference and so on, for the Las Vegas, for the tournament in Las Vegas. And so it's not the strongest team, but that's what I want to check. And then he hoped that this team able to win this award.
Thank you. Other questions for Christakis? Thank you, Coach. We will now move on to our third coach here, sitting on the left side, Team USA. Coach is Bruce Burnett. Coach Burnett was the national coach for the United States between 1992 and 2000. Last year, we rehired him after his college career had completed to coach our U.S. team again and will lead our efforts into the next Olympics. As you may know, Team USA has been third at the last two World Cups, and we have an opportunity to host it here again. Coach Burnett, how's preparation gone with the American team, and what do you feel will be needed for the United States to move to the first and win this tournament?
Well, there's a couple things that we have to think about, and first, the teams that we have to compete against. Actually, our training's been really good, but our first competition will be against Cuba, and they have 6 world medalists out of the 8 weight classes. And then we're going to have Russia, who's been world champions and perennial powers, and then we're going to compete against Mongolia. And their lineup, they have 6 world medalists out of the 8 weight classes. We've got a strong team, our best team. And the guys have trained well and they're ready to compete, and I'm excited to see them get a little bit better and make no mistakes. This is a major event for us and an opportunity for us to get back on the world stage and prove that we belong on the podium. And so we've competed and practiced, and I think we're prepared and ready to roll.
Questions for Coach Burnett? Raise your hand.
Coach Burnett,
1 second, John, please.
thank you. How many of your champions are coming from the state of California?
We actually have in the starting lineup Jake Varner, who's a 2012 Olympic champion from Bakersfield, California, my hometown as well, and then possibly Aaron Pico. He's an alternate at 65 kilo, and those are the California athletes that are in our lineup.
And do we know right now who is from the Iranian and American fighting with Jordan?
I don't think we'll know that until the whistle blows. So they keep it pretty close to the vest. As a matter of fact, I'd like Coach Christakis to tell us who exactly is going to wrestle for Russia. They have 2 guys in each weight as well.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for Coach? Thank you very much. Now I have the privilege to introduce the 2 Olympic champions who will represent the United States this week in Los Angeles. Both have been training and preparing for this competition, and looking forward to getting out there tomorrow. We're going to start with that Bakersfield, California native, our 200 Olympic champion.
Yeah! Bakersfield.
So Jake, I'm going to ask the obvious question. Tell us about how you feel about being able to come home to California and represent your country at such an important event.
Yeah, this is awesome. I haven't competed in California since 2010 in folk style. So last time I wrestled freestyle here has been even longer than that. So this is a great event. I mean, like Andy said, behind the Olympics and the World Championships, this is a tournament. You know, this is a prestigious tournament. This is the best teams in the world competing against each other. I think it's good for the United States to have wrestling here. I think it's good for California to have wrestling here, especially with all the teams that have been cut or that are on the chopping block in college. You know, this is a big boost for our country, for our sport. So it's a privilege to be here, and I'm excited.
Questions for Jake? Sir?
I was just going to ask you all, what's the difference between jiu-jitsu and wrestling? I understand they're both kind of full contact and grappling and that stuff. Can you just give me a little bit of explanation on that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not real experienced in jiu-jitsu. I think there's a lot of choking out and breaking arms and all that stuff. I think you can do that in wrestling, but you'll get penalized for it, so we try not to do that. I mean, they're both contact sports. I mean, just like MMA or you know, any of that stuff, it's contact. It's 2 guys going out there and battling and trying to get their hand ready. So I think in that aspect, it's pretty similar. Obviously, the rules make them different. So you know, you don't see a lot of jiu-jitsu happening in wrestling. Maybe a lot of wrestling in jiu-jitsu. I don't know. I've never watched it, and I've never done it. So that's about all the knowledge I have of that.
I think just a couple comments. They're both turning out to be strong foundations for the mixed martial arts. The big difference, well, they have different origins. Jiu-jitsu has a Asian set of origins, and of course now, you know, we've become very familiar with the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Wrestling really has a you know, Middle Eastern, European origins. Although there are folk styles of wrestling from practically every area of the world. And on a competitive basis, of course, jiu-jitsu you'll wear I think they call it a gi in jiu-jitsu as well as judo or karate. Wrestling we wear a singlet, far more attractive attire. And then the difference in the competitive styles is that you have submission holds in jiu-jitsu, whether it's choke holds or arm bars or other type of joint locks. And as Jake pointed out, we don't have that in wrestling. Wrestling is one of the it's one of the martial arts where it probably provides the greatest degree of protection against injury for the wrestler, for the competitor. You know, certainly boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, with the striking and the submission holds, there is a greater chance of injury. One of the great things of wrestling is the degree to which people look to protect the competitors.
One more question. This ancient sport, has it come from Turkey, Russia, Iran, you know, where it was from?
Yes, all those places. It really, I think it would probably go back to even Greek times. You know, Greco-Roman wrestling was, along with the marathon, was one of the two original sports in the Olympics 3,000 years ago. But there have been versions and forms of wrestling in all those countries.
Okay, just lastly, I just want one more thing to say. I am so impressed. This is making my day, my year, amazing day in the U.S. to see you sitting next to Iranian, American next to sitting each other, and hopefully we'll have an amazing relationship going ahead. So I'm really excited for all the team to compete. Thank you for inviting the Iranian team here. I'm very proud of you all, proud of the Iranian team. Hopefully we'll have an amazing, amazing competition. Thank you.
Craig?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question of Jake. A lot of you guys, you go to different colleges, you wrestle against each other, train in different parts of the country, but it seems like there's a really good camaraderie among you guys. A lot of you guys have been on teams together. Just talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're in college, there's a lot of rivalries, and I wouldn't say this team doesn't like that team type thing, but it's real competitive, and once you graduate, you get out of college and you get on a freestyle circuit. Everybody, you know everybody, through the college and through high school, and you put that behind you, and you're looking forward to what's going to be next, and that's winning world medals and Olympic medals. So you do everything you can to help each other, and put the best guy out there that we can. And, we have a real good camaraderie with our team. Everybody gets along, which is a good thing. No matter what's happened in the past, everybody gets along. We train hard together, and we try and help each other. So we all want to win, and we want to stay on the podium. This tournament and the Worlds, and we want to be on top. So that's really helps out a lot. So.
Any other questions for Jay?
Nothing objective, just good luck. But I wanted to comment on the culture of our sport. We're known around the world as the oldest sport known to mankind, wrestling. And if you search it back into the archives, you'll find rock drawings in the Egyptian culture. So that pretty much started most of mankind, and we're very proud of our sport. And it's great to see everybody.
Good question.
There's a question in there, Wayne?
Any other questions at this point for Jake Varner, Mr. California here today? All right, well, I'll move to the guy at the far end, and again, we're proud to have two Olympic champions. Jordan Burroughs won it in London right alongside Jake for the United States, has 2 world titles and 3 world medals. And this is a World Cup question, Jordan. You've won every match, you've wrestled in all the World Cups you've been in, and obviously come in here looking to do the same thing. Talk a little bit about the challenge of knowing that all your opponents are kind of aiming to beat you, and they tend to bring their absolute A game when it's time to wrestle Jordan Burroughs. How do you deal with that?
I relish in it. I really always have wanted to be the best guy, so that was a huge motivator for me as a young man, was to be the guy that everyone feared when I walked into weigh-ins. And when I stepped out on the mat, I wanted to have the swagger and confidence that just exude greatness. And so I really train hard, and my confidence comes from my preparation. And so being with Coach Burnett and training around Jake Varner, we had a commonality that we all want to be the best in the world. So it's great. It's great. I enjoy it. I really want to be the best guy, and I enjoy getting everyone's best shot. So I train hard to beat the best guys on their best days. And so for me, that makes competition great, and I enjoy it very much.
Questions for Jordan? I may need your moment.
Hello, Mr. Guru. What's up? But 3 Varner, you come a winner in the Iranian, in the Istanbul and the London Olympic and Budapest. But people didn't like you. But in that's Uzbekistan in Tashkent. And you match you and Denis Sardush Denis Sarduch can win it. But for Las Vegas, this match is not here. Denis Sarduch is not here. But for Las Vegas, you choose one good tactic for Denis Sarduch about.
Yeah, for sure. I think we definitely have been working toward techniques to beat him. And so I've beaten him twice. I think the series right now is 2-1. And so I'd say I'm still in the lead for now. I've got a world championship and Olympic gold medal as well. And so I'm looking forward to wrestling him again. There's still a selection process. I have to make the team. And we've got some pretty hungry young wrestlers at 74 kilos here in the USA. And so it's going to be tough, but I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity to wrestle Sarduch again in Vegas. And so I'm sure he's got to make the team. He's got to wrestle through Russian nationals. He's wrestling extremely well at this point in his career. But if I want to be a world champion and an Olympic champion, that's the guy I'm going to have to beat. And so I'm looking forward to getting that opportunity. Hopefully we're actually on the different side of the bracket this time as opposed to wrestling in the semifinals as we have in the last 3 world championships that we've competed against each other. But yeah, he's a stud, man, and I'm looking forward to wrestling again. So it'll be good stuff.
You have another question here for Jordan?
Mr. Jordan Burroughs, first of all, congrats on achieving what you've achieved so far. You're just an awesome wrestler to watch. Honestly. How did you become so incredibly fast that last year we were trying to analyze your movements with the show that I have on the radio for the Persian community, 670 AM. And I had an analyst, and he said that the Iranian delegation thought that your speed is 1,000th of a second on your movements that are incredibly fast. So my question for the kids to look after you and also emulate you. How did you become so fast in this wrestling?
I don't know. I guess some of it is innate ability that I was just born with. Other of my abilities have been learned through processes of training, coaching, working out, a lot of wrestling, a lot of timing, a lot of response training. And so it's taken a long time to kind of reach this status in my career, and I feel better than I ever have. But it's been really difficult to get to this point. So it's taken a lot of work. If you've watched me train and see all the hours that I put in, you really wouldn't be that impressed with my abilities because it's taken a lot of work to get to this level. But I don't know. I'm just fast, and I'm happy that I am because it works for me very often in a lot of my matches. And so I try to use my speed to the best of my abilities, and it's really hard for my opponents to slow me down. And so that's one thing that I've been working on is continued motion throughout the entire match to kind of exploit my opponents in different positions and take advantage of different opportunities presented in matches. And so I know that wrestling guys like Sarduch, the Iranian wrestlers, they're very strong in their positioning and very good with their technique, that my speed is something that holds me above in that level of the sport. So yeah, it's something that's been great. I don't really know how fast I am in terms of a scientific level, but I'd say I'm pretty fast.
Coach Christakis has something to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Я прошу прощения за то, что беру слово, но я ждал от присутствующих в зале, что мне зададут вопрос по поводу Sarducha.
He said he's sorry, he take microphone to talk, but he was expecting the questions about Sarduch, so he decided to talk about himself.
Talk about Sarduch.
И поэтому я хотел бы сказать следующее. Джордан является, соответственно, одним из основных претендентов на олимпийскую медаль в Рио-де-Жанейро.
Saying that Jordan, of course, is one of the winners who they think would be taking gold in our Olympic level 2016.
Не в меньшей мере Александр Денис.
But at the same time, we also think about Sarduch as well.
И эту изюминку мы хотели привести Дениса сюда сейчас на Кубок мира.
So they wanted to bring Sarduch now to the World Cup.
Но в последний момент мы поменяли это решение, чтобы оставить эту интригу до конца протянуть до чемпионата мира в Лас-Вегасе.
But at last moment they decided to not bring it to Las Vegas, so they would kind of continue this intrigue before Olympics. So they would meet at Las Vegas.
И я хотел бы сказать, что благодаря вот таким вот моментам в категориях, то есть 74, как Burroughs и Сарбуш, наш вид спорта является именно вот вся его красота именно в этом, то, что есть такие величайшие борцы, и это есть то, что нас объединяет.
And that's what makes the beauty of this sport, that we have leaders like Jordan and Dennis Sarbush, and that's what they make the beauty of our sport of wrestling and bring us united.
Thank you.
Any other questions for any of our athletes, coaches, or guests?
With Jordan, congratulations to all of you, in fact, congratulations to all of you. You went to Iran, what year was that? And could you just elaborate what was, obviously, because you were telling me that you were nervous, obviously, before going to Iran, which is normal. But what could you share with us, your best experience that you had in Iran?
Yeah, for sure. I went to Iran in 2013, and so was shortly after wrestling was dropped from the Olympics. And it was really scary. A couple weeks before I actually went to Iran, I saw the movie Argo. And so I don't know if you've seen that movie, but if you see that as an American, it's kind of scary, headed into Iran a couple weeks later. But once I got there and finally landed, I realized that it was a very hospitable country. They love the sport of wrestling, and they love me. And so surprisingly, I beat Sadiq Garzi in the 2011 World Championships and 2012 Olympics. And I thought that there may be a little bit of bitterness from that country toward me as being a rival to the country of Iran. But they were very inviting, they love the sport, and that was extremely, extremely exciting for me. And so I love to compete in front of people who enjoy the sport of wrestling. Not very many people in this country embrace the sport like you guys do in Iran, so it was awesome, and I was happy to be there.
Any plan to go to Iran for the future with your crew?
I'd like to. They love wrestling, so anywhere that loves wrestling, I'd like to be there as often as possible. It's a very far journey for us, especially with me having a baby boy, but it's been a great experience thus far going to Iran, and I'd love to go back there and compete sometime in the future.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any last questions? Okay, so now we'll have some breakout time if you want to do one-on-ones with any of our guests, but really welcome you guys to be here. I look forward to a great weekend of World Cup wrestling competition, and if you have any questions or needs, get a hold of myself or our staff here. Thank you very much.
I want to get